Hello and welcome back to the overview videos of the Simplement Data Director. We just went through the Hierarchy Projector configuration, and now we're going to go through the Hierarchy Projector Explorer. Now that we have this open, you'll see there are 4 folder groups here: account hierarchies, cost center hierarchies, cost element hierarchies, and profit center hierarchies. These are the 4 major SAP hierarchies that the Data Director will handle for you out of the box. There are additional hierarchies in SAP, but these 4 cover most reporting and business needs. Navigating these groups is pretty much the same as the Dictionary Explorer we went through earlier, where all you do is you just double click, it'll expand. See this bank group, then we'll see there's a bank node. You can keep going down and down and down. Depending on your SAP environment, these hierarchies could have 10, 12, 15 levels, or maybe only 2 or 3. But again, it depends on how your SAP environment is configured. In this case, I'm using a demo environment, so that's why it looks the way it does. So a helpful feature here as well is if we hover over any of these nodes or subnodes in the hierarchy, we can see the tooltip will tell us exactly how many accounts in this case, because we're in the account hierarchy, are below it. So before you even expand, I can see there's 141 total accounts below, 5 levels below. And that's the same for cost element, cost center, any of the other hierarchies. So this is helpful for browsing the hierarchies, but this tool is not just a browser. Much like the Dictionary Explorer, it also gives you a jump start on SQL, and I'll show that using this cost element. So I'm going to drill down a little, and we'll just choose this group. That's fine. We see here there's 4 total cost elements below it. At this point I should mention I'm going to start getting into some SQL queries. So if you're unfamiliar with SQL, this might be a bit confusing, but I'm just going to assume that you have some familiarity and understanding with how SQL queries work at this point. So I'm just going to right click on this node here, Simplement, whatever that stands for. Let's say script selection to clipboard. Now I already have SSMS open. Since it copied it to the clipboard, I can just paste it. You can just do Control-V, it doesn't matter. And it's going to put out this query template for you. Basically what this template does for you is up top in this part it selects just those elements that we are looking at in the Hierarchy Explorer, and then it gives you an option to do a sort of regular selection from an SAP table. And then in this last portion it joins those so that your selection from the SAP table will be filtered to exactly what you're looking at in the Hierarchy Explorer. And to show that, I'm going to switch tabs. I already have an example prepared using the same cost element group that we were looking at, that's Simplement. So I'm going to go through this piece by piece real quick. So this top part I was mentioning just selects from the hierarchy tables exactly and only those 4 nodes in Simplement. So if I just execute just this portion of the query, we'll see it's limited to only those 4 nodes. And if I switch back to the Explorer real quick and expand that, we'll see these 4 cost elements match up to here. So that is sort of the limiting factor here. It has to be one of those 4. This next portion of the template is where you can put in whatever query you want. In this case, just for demonstration purposes, I just did a simple select star from the cost element table, CSKA. So we can see this is returning everything. In my demo system there's 2,900 rows more or less. But this user query portion, this could be a huge 700 line SQL query that does a lot of tricks and sort of joins and that sort of thing. It just has to be a valid query right here. Up until now, though, these queries have been separate, but on lines 21 through 29, this is where it does an inner join on the hierarchy selection, which, if you recall, is just those 4 cost elements, and whatever I put here in user query, which happened to be everything. So now if I run the entire statement, it's still gonna select from CSKA, but it's only gonna select the ones that exist in that Simplement node we were looking at in the Explorer. So I'm just going to hit F5, to execute the whole thing. And so now you can see we're still getting the column output from the CSKA table, but we're getting it limited to only those ones that fulfill this join condition, which basically says it has to be in this node we were looking at in the Explorer. So this is just an example to show how it works from a technical point of view, but there's lots of real-world business applications for this. Like for cost elements, if we want to stick with that example, let's say you have a query that selects from COEP or from one of the general ledger tables like BSEG, and you want to limit it to certain cost element groups. You can easily do that using this exact same formula of having your cost element limiting query, your regular query that gets whatever data you want, and then the join that will filter it down to these 4 rows or whatever it is you're trying to filter to. So this is a really powerful tool, and it's very helpful for your developers. And with that, we've basically covered all the main functions of the Hierarchy Explorer. We were kind of focusing on cost elements, but it's the same process for any of these hierarchies, whether it's account, cost center, cost element, or profit center. Thank you for watching, and in the other videos we'll go through the rest of the data director tools.